Okay, so now here we are, Black History Month 2022, and society is ready to rip itself apart over the opinions of two comedians. You probably think, okay, Maya, I know you think this is some kind of cosmic joke, that our puppet masters are pulling the strings and somehow society is being trolled. And we allow ourselves to be trolled because we are at heart a very goofy society. In other societies, maybe the words of two comedians wouldn't hold such weight. Well, that's silly. Of course, I take this seriously. Because I take this so seriously, I have a solution that might actually end racism in America once and for all. No MLK, no Malcolm X, we can't leave racism in the 20th century. Thank you for your sacrifice and all, but we gotta drag this into the 21st century too, because we have nothing else to fight about, apparently. All that being said, I do have a solution that can help end racism. Yes, that's how seriously I take the current state of affairs. Okay, now, two of our biggest comedians turned mainstream, because that's a way to get into the mainstream. Why shouldn't it be? Do you think our actual educated leaders have done any good over the past 3 years? Why shouldn't comedians be mainstream as well? At least they won't lead us into a war. Probably not. Less likely to lead us into a war than our current mainstream media, so that's good. So these past few weeks, Whoopi Goldberg said something uninformed, misconstrued about the Holocaust, and Joe Rogan said many things, but over the course of his entire podcast. He didn't just say it this past week, but he said quite a lot. Anyway, these things are so harmful and so offensive. I'm not exactly sure who's genuinely injured by either of these things, but what they do is bring up deep-seated racism and racial tropes throughout our history, some wounds that haven't completely healed yet, and maybe those wounds do need healing. Well, how can we heal those wounds? What tools do we have at our disposal to heal those wounds? Hear me out. I know how we can heal those wounds and make a bunch of money. Okay, this is what we do. Joe Rogan and Whoopi Goldberg take ayahuasca together. We get an assigned female at birth shaman to oversee the entire thing. We put it on pay-per-view, live on pay-per-view. We have the Kentucky shaman hosting for the people. Vegas takes bets. Who's gonna vomit the most? Who's gonna shit themselves the most? Okay, we can bet on our particular hero, whether we're betting on Whoopi or Joe. I don't know. They both seem to have very strong stomachs. So 50-50. Okay, if I'm the house, I don't know. I would probably put a little bit of money on each just so I at least break even. But regardless, we sign up for pay-per-view. Everybody watches. They do their therapy. Do you remember when all these guys used to get caught with these young hot chicks and they would go to sex therapy because they were sex addicts? Okay, that seemed to be enough for us to forgive them. So these two, Whoopi and Joe Rogan, go to therapy with Mother Aya, ayahuasca. They travel into the other region, the other dimension. They meet with the closest thing we've come to discovering God. Who knows? Who knows what's in the other dimension? We don't know this person is God. This person could be the baker. We don't know who they are or what they're doing. Every time people go to another dimension, they always say they've met God. How do you know who you met was God? Could have been yourself. Could have been any number of things. But whatever. We're not going to dig into it too deeply. As far as we're concerned, in our piddly little dimension, they go, they meet God, Goddess, Mother Gaia. They go through therapy in 6 hours, something reasonable, not like a lot of therapy that we couldn't really cover. Maybe we could cover it in a mini series, maybe a full-on series if they were really going to actual therapy. We don't have time for that. We got like 6 hours. We're going to try to get through this. I mean, maybe if we want to do it in replay, we could condense it. Like if we want to sell the DVDs later, we could condense it. But just for a pay-per-view show, 6-hour dive into the other realms of themselves. They meet with God. God tells them, hey, don't be racist, be cool. They're like, cool. when they come out of it. And because they did it together, they know that all races are the same, etc., etc. We hug it out and everybody accepts everybody's apology. What do you think? Would you pay for this pay-per-view show? Who would you bet on to vomit the least? Joe Rogan or Whoopi Goldberg? But some of you know-it-alls out there might be like, but Maya, I don't believe in God. Well, good for you. You want a cookie? Let me get this other atheist to give you a cookie for your oh-so-helpful contrarian opinion. Thank you, Father. So you don't believe in God. So what? You don't know. Maybe he's there. We need an absolute authority to decide things. You know what I mean? We need God to forgive. Whether God is real or not, we need a God around to forgive. Now, the God that we all supposedly ascribe to, the Christian God, I know a lot of us don't actually ascribe to that, but this country says it is and whatever. Sure we are. We're Christian. Cool. That God asked us to forgive everybody. He said it from the cross. Forgive them, Lord. They know not what they do. And the more this pandemic goes on, the more wisdom I find in those words, because this sort of mass psychosis that we're going through, many different waves, many different kinds of mass psychosis, can you really hold people accountable for getting caught up in one of those waves? So this world is chaotic and cruel. Can we just say for the children that there is a God and he forgives? He forgives us, our sins. He forgives others who have trespassed against us. He just forgives. Why? Well, because the world is so chaotic and cruel. So sure, you take the ayahuasca and the big person in the sky or the mother of the earth that made us all, she's like, hey, you're forgiven. Okay, I'm forgiven. Yeah, everyone's forgiven because it doesn't matter. Uh-oh, that got real. Oopsie daisy. Anyway, I'm just saying, I see a solution on the table. I see money to be made. Haven't we all decided that our God is the dollar anyway? Hush, hush. But we all decided like a long time ago that that's what we're doing. And we're not unhappy with that. We're just saying it's the way it is. So win-win. And then what do we do with all this money? All this money we take in from the pay-per-view. What do we do with it all? This is what we do with it all, okay? We donate it so that BIPOC LGBTQIA plus children can have kettlebells, DMT, and sensible but fashionable clothes. Whoopi's got a line of clothes. Did you know that? She's got her own line. So let's distribute the wealth. Let's share the wealth with everybody from this pay-per-view. What do you think? Is it a good idea? Are you willing to forgive them? Okay, hear me out. I'm going to actually go into it. You thought this was a joke. It's not a joke. We're taking it seriously because Twitter said we should. So we have to take it seriously. So I'm going to go one by one. Both cases. I love Whoopi. I love Guinan. Joe Rogan, definitely news radio with Phil Hartman. Like, legend. They're both legends in the comedy, entertainment sphere. Wow, it's crazy that they have moved out of comedy and entertainment to have such drama. Whatever. I don't believe that our national discourse is comedy or entertainment. Who would make a video about such a thing? Be serious. Be a serious person. Okay, cool. First, I'm going to go into what Whoopi said. Somebody actually commented on this. They said, Maya, can you explain this to us? Okay, cool. Whoopi said that the Holocaust was not about racism. It was about man's inhumanity towards man. I get where she's coming from because from our definition of racism, the races are distinct. There's African, there's European, there's Asian, there's indigenous. So that's how we, in America, define the races. That's not exactly how the Nazis defined the races. But you know what? The Nazis lost that war, so f*** them. Our definition wins. Ha 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 ha. So Whoopi was not wrong. But that's really cold-hearted to say on The View. You can't say something that cold-hearted on The View. I do not watch The View and haven't in many, many seasons. But I imagine they're not going to say something that messed up on The View. So the Nazis were very racist. They just defined race differently. They defined race more like we define tribe. They considered Slavic people of a different tribe, etc., etc. So they also had hate for other races entirely. However, I see where Whoopi is saying about the racial thing, because we define races as coming from continents, but this is really just humans who have adapted to their environment. Anyway, this got on into a spiel. Basically, the Nazis defined race differently, and they targeted the Jews for their blood, which you can see in the movie Conspiracy, or The Conspiracy. It's about this conference that the Nazis had where they decided on the final solution. And they distinguished not just culturally, but by blood. So people who had converted, people who are half this, they still got sent. And that was a by blood thing. So that's a genetics thing. That's a eugenics thing. And yes, they were inspired in eugenics from the United States. But the United States, conveniently, good for us, like honestly good for us, actually could not afford to have tribalism within its borders. So we have to define race by color of the skin, because gotta keep an underclass. But you can't have everybody in the underclass. It's just not going to work with how we defined liberty. The white people from Europe, they used to rip each other apart in Europe. Then they came here and they were all white. But it's like, how many genocides did these people have against each other? But they come here and they're a melting pot. Similar with the Black experience. Like, what was going on in Africa? There's so many tribes that came over here and they were forced into a new tribe. So white America is actually a new tribe and Black America is actually a new tribe. And I hope we're going to be seeing past this sometime soon. The United States wasn't even the least racist of the major powers in that war. They weren't. The least racist, the most anti-racist was the Soviet Union. And here's where Whoopi got it right. It's about man's inhumanity towards man, because the Soviet Union was super anti-racist. There's this movie, The Circus, I'm not exactly sure. I'll link a clip to it at the bottom. It's like Stalin's favorite movie. And the movie is basically like this woman has to run away from America because she has a half-black baby, and they're going to, they're going to string her up, or they ran her out of town because she's awful to have been such a race traitor. So she goes to the Soviet Union and she's in this circus, and then this awful guy, this awful American, says he's going to expose her. And instead of exposing her, he says to the audience, she's got a half-black baby. And the Soviet audience is like, that's okay. We love all people. And they pass the baby around and everybody loves the baby. And this is Stalin's favorite movie. How many people did Stalin kill? More than all of them. This is where it gets complicated, because it is about man's inhumanity towards man. But the Nazis were also like super efficient. So everything's special. All genocides are special. All genocides are unique. Anywho, I hope that Whoopi takes a look at man's inhumanity towards man, because we've seen it over the past few years. We've seen that hate bubble up in society. And where have we seen it? Vax versus anti-vax. Ugh. It's been horrible to live through. I wouldn't say horrible. It's been kind of messed up to live through, to watch your society descend into this much madness. But it's also been fascinating to watch them craft this narrative and force this hate through, influence others to hate, influence the vaxxed to hate the unvaxxed, to influence them to create these two new groups, like when that lady made that classroom of children hate each other based on blue eyes versus brown eyes, that you can just force people to do that. This is conditioning. This is behaviorism. This is how you get others to hate others. Was it intentional or not? I don't know. I just know over the past 2 years, there's been a deliberate hate crafted over the vax versus anti-vax stuff. And that's what I have seen. And I've seen it also from Whoopi. So Whoopi Goldberg, Guinan, I love you. And I love you from childhood. But if we're going to look, if we're going to reflect, if we're going to take this time to reflect, can we all reflect on the hate that has been fomented over the past 2 years? I don't think you were completely wrong. Actually, I think the point that you made was so big that we're not even going to address it. It's too big for the public to address, really. Man's inhumanity towards man, man's hate towards man, it can just bubble up from nowhere. If it bubbles up from race, if it bubbles up from class, no matter what, we're going to turn on each other and hate each other. Let me put this cat away. I know, you want to ruin my video. Excuse me, my cat had something to add, but his English is terrible, so I put him in the bedroom. So isn't it fascinating how easily you can get one group of humans to hate another group of humans? This is why I completely dismiss the idea of a utopia, because we'll always find some way to hate each other. It's like a little beautiful and like a little terrifying. Okay, moving on to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, who we can all agree is the podcaster most likely to have Indiana Jones on. And this is why I'm like, ooh, this is a tough one. Because I do want to see Indiana Jones should he ever come on a podcast. I don't run in Indiana Jones circles. He apparently does. I don't know what he gets up to in his free time. But if there's an Indiana Jones, Joe Rogan gonna find him and give him a 4-hour podcast. There are 3 videos that are super problematic for Joe Rogan going around. There's the N-word video where he says it like, how many times? I don't even know. He says it many times. That's not the most offensive video for me because he doesn't say it out of hate, but it's just sort of like, it's a trigger word. It has become a trigger word and they have programmed us with it. They've kind of created a debate. Who made the debate on either side? Think about this. When we go back to the beginning, they have us fighting over this little inconsequential thing. I don't want to get conspiratorial, but that word has become a trigger word and people react to it like the ringing of a bell. Just think about that. Like the ringing of a bell, people react. What bothered me most about what Joe Rogan said was the Planet of the Apes comment. He tried to say like, oh, it's like I was in Africa. It's like, that's where the apes are, in Africa, right? So, that's a reach. But that's what he said. That was his excuse. Okay. The other comment that he made that was definitely problematic, although he didn't say a bad word. It was more of an idea. It was the guest that he had on where he said, you've got a white parent and a black parent. So you've got a black person's body and a white person's mind. I thought that was ridiculous because I've never found the average white person to be off the charts intelligent. The average American is white. Even to this day, the average American is white. This isn't like a Mensa convention every time you leave the house. I live here and I can tell you for a fact that my day-to-day interactions with white people are not as if I were going to the Getty Museum or I was in a Mensa convention or we're at a CERN conference, okay? Say what you will about the old debate of black people being more athletic. I know that he feels that, but I'm going to check him on this white people being especially intelligent thing because I'm like, what white people are you talking about? Where are these masses of intelligent white people? Now, if this person were like half Asian or something like that, then I could see that racism was justifiable and maybe I would give him a pass. But like, do you think the problem with the average American is that they are super intelligent? Do you think that white America's life expectancy is going down because these are super intelligent people? I just don't, I'm confused by that racism, if anything. Anyway, that's not the point. Let me stay on topic. What they are mad at Joe Rogan for is his taking on Google, is his taking on the vaccine. He recently had a person on his podcast that explained that the Google algorithms are not impartial. He had people, experts in their field, on to say that there's a problem with the vaccine and our response to COVID. This is what they're coming at him for. They're not coming at him for the racism stuff because the racism stuff has been out there for a minute. Sagar and Jetty has done a fantastic breakdown of the money coming after Joe Rogan. So yes, Joe Rogan absolutely said those things, and yes, they are absolutely problematic, but this is not why they're taking him down. Now, that having been said, I do want to see Indiana Jones when he goes on a podcast. I'll listen to all 4 hours because I bet he's got stories. Like, how do you know where the booby trap is? He always seems to know where the booby trap is. Like, I need that information in my life. I need to know where Atlantis is. Like, where is this new information you have about Atlantis? All this racism stuff, it's just super upsetting. I do want to forgive them. So here's what we do. The pay-per-view. They go, they meet Mother Earth, Mother Goddess, whatever they meet. They do it together. By the time they're finished with it, they're friends, they're equals, their souls have seen each other. I don't know what happens. But then God can say, hey, it's cool. Y'all can forgive both of them so we can go back to normal. We can stop with this bit of entertainment. Don't worry, there'll be more entertainment coming out soon. There'll be more people we can go after that the mob can chase after with their digital pitchforks and cancel. There will be more. So here's a very important point, that when people are trying to make amends, you let them make amends. To the best of your ability, you let them make amends, especially for words, because words are just words. It's not like they lied us into a war in Iraq or anything. So you let them make amends. And if anyone is trying ever to make things right, it's the last time you want to kick them then, especially if it's family or if it's your spouse. If they're apologizing and trying to make things better, do not then abuse them, because then they won't try anymore. Actually, who said this? And I was like, wow, that's brilliant. I'm going to take that. That was Jordan Peterson. That was Jordan Peterson on a Joe Rogan podcast. And you know what? I'm not entirely pleased with everything Jordan Peterson has ever done. But that bit of advice, that bit of information has directly helped me in my life not screw up and not hurt a member of my family. So this is good, solid information. No matter the source, this is good, solid information. That having been said, if they do it again, we'll say, okay, well, you lied this whole time. But that's just one of those rules of thumb that can make life a lot more peaceful, because neither of these people is going to be going away, nor are their fan bases going away. So I really feel it's important to make peace. And the way to make peace definitively, so that nobody can question it, is for them to both take ayahuasca in a place that has at least 4 cameras so we can get good coverage of it. I don't want to see the other cameras though, okay? I don't want to see the behind the scenes. Maybe we can get Elon Musk to put a camera in each of their minds so we can see the therapy. I'd be willing to pay extra for this. I don't usually do pay-per-view, but if we can get an Elon Musk Tesla camera in their brains, honestly, you could make that part up. We could green screen that whole part, okay? The audience never knows. So we'll green screen that CGI ahead of time, play it for the live show. That's the Tesla camera. We don't even need to make that technology. We can just lie and say we've made that technology. Really, it's CGI. Fantastic. It's a better show. We're all at home eating up our bread and circuses. Just yum, yum, yum. Give me more. And you know what? Then we move on, because God forgives. Well, if you have a better idea, then you should make a video with your idea. Subscribe.